Welcome to the Mapping Prejudice project. Today I'm going to give a quick demonstration of how you can help us in our mission to catalog and track all of the racially restrictive covenants in Minneapolis. To begin, click the Get Started tab. Once you click the Get Started tab, you'll be brought to a page that looks like this. The image here on the left, outlined in red, is the deed image that we believe contains a racially restrictive covenant. Your first task is to determine if there actually is a racial restriction for this particular deed. In order to do that, you need to read through the document and look for racially coded language. In this case, there is indeed a racial restriction. In this paragraph here, it states that the premises hereby conveyed shall not at any time be conveyed, mortgaged, or leased to any person or persons of Chinese, Japanese, Moorish, Turkish, Negro, Mongolian, or African blood or descent. Based on that sentence, over here on the right, you can now click yes for this first question. Is there a racial covenant? In this case, there is. You then click the next tab, which will bring you to the next task. The next task asks you to transcribe the language of the racial restriction in question. In order to do that, scroll down to where you found the restriction based on the first question and simply enter in what it says. Once you have finished entering the racial restriction, just click on the next button. The following question is going to ask you about the edition name. In order for us to map these racial restrictions, we need to know where these deeds were. In order to do that, we need several pieces of information, one of which is the edition name. The edition name usually comes in a page that's different from the racial restriction. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see three little circles. Each deed normally contains 3 pages. Thus, we have actually uploaded all 3 pages for a single deed. Clicking on these buttons will toggle to the page before and after the one that contains the racial restriction. And remember, the racial restriction will always be the deed image that is outlined in red. To find the edition name, go to the first page. The edition usually comes within the first 2 paragraphs. In this case, it's in paragraph number 3. It says, Lot 32, Block 6 of Perkins Seven Oaks Edition to Minneapolis. The Perkins Seven Oaks Edition is what we would like you to answer in the edition name box up here. When you're finished, click the next button. The next question is going to ask you about the lot number. The lot number can usually be found in the same part of the document where you found the edition name. In this case, in the 3rd paragraph, once again, it tells you what the lot is. Number 32. Please enter that number into the text box on the right-hand side of the screen. Then click the next button. The following question is now going to ask you about the block. The block almost always comes immediately following the lot. In this case, block 6. Again, please enter the number in the text box on the right. The next question is going to ask you about the document number. This is normally found at the very beginning of the deed before the first paragraph. In here, you can see doc number 1348874. Once you have finished entering in the number, hit the next tab. The next question is going to ask you when the deed was initially recorded. This date almost always comes immediately following the document number. In this case, it says the deed was filed on April 30th, 1926. You may notice that it's kind of hard to read the number after 1920. In order to get a better look at the deed image, you can use the zoom buttons here at the top of the page. Zooming in several times and dragging the image back down, we can get a clearer look at the date. In this case, it does seem to be 1926. Once you have determined the date, use the drop-down menus on the right to fill in the particular values. In this case, we have April 30th. You can also type the numbers in on your keyboard and it will automatically pull them up. And also the year, 1926. Once you're done, click the next button. This next question is very similar to the first one. In this case, instead of when the deed was recorded, we're looking for when the deed was executed. This is the date that comes in the text of the actual deed itself, in this very first paragraph, where it says, this indenture, made on the 20th day of April, A.D., 1,926. The date that the deed is executed usually comes before or is an earlier date than when the date was recorded. In this case, it was executed in the 20th and recorded on the 30th. This is a good way to tell which date is the executed date and which date is the recorded date. As before, use the drop-down menu to answer the questions. April 20th, 1926. When you're done, click the Next tab. The next question asks who is the grantor, and the grantor is the person that sold the property. Their name is usually listed in one of the first two paragraphs. In this case, if we zoom out a little bit, we can see that this agreement was made between Seven Oaks Corporation, party of the first part, and Jesse Haverly of the second part. The party of the first part is the grantor. This is the person who sold the property, in this case a corporation. Please enter this name in the text box on the right. Click the Next button, and the final question asks who is the grantee, in other words, who bought the property. In this case, it was two people. Please enter both of their names on the right. In a few rare cases, there will be more than two names. If that's the case, just enter the first two. When you're done, click Done. This is the final page for a given classification and summarizes all of the information that you have entered. You can use this as a chance to review the answers that you provided. If you're satisfied, click Next, and it will bring you to a new classification. Due to the historical nature of these warranty deeds, there will be occasional problems as you try to answer these questions. This example here on the left is a reoccurring issue that may pop up for you. Well, this deed does have a racial restriction. You can see it here on the second paragraph. The deed itself is more than 3 pages. So when you get to the question that asks what the addition name is, if you go to the first page, it's still not at the beginning of the deed. The actual addition name would be several pages back in the original deed book. If you get an image like this, where you simply cannot answer the questions on the right, use the back button to go to the beginning and click the I can't figure this one out button. This flags the image and alerts us, the project managers, to manually look at this deed in question. You can explain what the problem is in this text box. Once you've explained the problem, click the Done tab, and then click Next to start a new classification. Another common problem is when multiple lots or multiple blocks are described in the warranty deed. If you look at this document, you'll notice that both lots 8 and lots 9 are described. Whenever you run into multiple lots or multiple blocks, please use the word multiple and type it into the text box.